Hello listeners and welcome to the show. This is Sam Abrika, the CEO of Nova Money, an AI financial planner designed to help you build financial freedom. Today we have an exclusive interview with Gordian, the first entrepreneur to ever sell a company on the blockchain as an NFT. NFT are digital assets that live on the blockchain. They usually are created by artists who sell unique pieces of art, such as pictures, music, or videos. How do you end up selling a tech company on the blockchain? Well, if you're as intrigued as I am, let's hear the full story from Gordian. Hello Gordian and welcome to the show.
Hi Sam, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So today is going to be a very exciting day. We're going to talk about the first startup going on the NFT. Crazy. But before that, can you tell us a bit more about what was your company, OneTool, the history, what problem were you solving?
Yeah, so first of all, I am the founder of OneTool, it is called. And what I was trying to solve with OneTool was, I always call it the SaaS chaos. You know, wherever you work, normally if you work in the modern environment, you normally work with hundreds or at least dozens of different SaaS tools. For example, Slack, Gmail, Pipedrive, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I have many of them.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and normally the average company uses roughly 150 different SaaS tools.
150?
And what happens then, and what happens is it becomes a management chaos. And what we try to do with OneTool is to bring them all together under one platform so that you can on and offboard your employees with pretty much one click to all the different tools. And that has a few more benefits. On one side, you keep the overview. On the other side, you are able to have or mitigate security risks, because normally what always happens, you get rid of an employee or he leaves or she leaves or so, and then you forget to offboard her from a tool. And all of a sudden, that person still has access to this tool. And that wasn't supposed to happen with OneTool because you consolidate all these software in your platform.
Yeah, I run a company. We had up to 13 staff members. I can definitely understand the pain point. And yeah, it sounds like a very good idea. So is it how you got to Y Combinator?
Yeah, exactly. Like initially when we first started it, we started as ideally one subscription to have access to everything. Of course, since then it has evaluated a little bit in terms of what we were doing. But yeah, with that pitch, one-stop shop with access to all your tools, that's how we got accepted into Y Combinator end of 2019.
Well done. Is it true that once you go to Y Combinator, everything gets easy? You get investor knocking at your doors, you get like all the best employees knocking at your doors?
I wouldn't say it's easy. I think, if you get accepted to Y Combinator, things that you probably wouldn't have thought about before all of a sudden happening. But if it comes to investors, yes, it's fairly easy to talk to investors if you were part of Y Combinator. But on the other side, the expectations also increase. Y Combinator doesn't want to have any companies that are below a $1 billion valuation. And I know that's in tendency also something that every VC wants. But let's be honest, like a lot of VCs invest if you show some basic metrics and then they see where you can go from there. And Y Combinator has very high expectations.
Did that put a lot of pressure on your growth strategy?
Yeah, not only that, but also on our whole product, and that's why we are where we are today. We try to go all in, we try to go big from the beginning and not to do incremental growth over time to get there at some point. So in our case, it was always go big or go home. And now we're going home, but in style.
What were the decisions that led to the crash? Did you grow too quickly?
No, in our case, I think when you talk to potential customers, these are normally fast-growing companies. It's a no-brainer. All of them need that or have implemented a similar software somewhere to solve this problem. The major challenge is that when you are talking about implementing a similar software, that normally takes, setup effort of 3 to 6 months, sometimes even longer. And what we try to do is really to make it so easy that even your grandma could use it. So that literally you're up to get started in 30 minutes. And so from that perspective, we never really had problems getting leads or qualified interests or so. It's more the technology. Like if we say we can do it in half an hour, what the best other company out there, which is by the way worth a few billion, can do in 6 to 9 months, then either your tech is really brilliant or you are working on something to make it brilliant. In our case, we always knew it was a risk and we just couldn't make it technically possible. And
so you're over-promising and hoping that by the time the customers will come here, you would have solved the magical solution.
And no, not really over-promising, because we did develop the tech and we did develop the standard that works for it. But we were over-promising in terms of, this only works if you are also having integrations to all these different SaaS tools.
Yeah.
And not just to a few ones. And with that, what we underestimated is how much maintenance do every single API, how much maintenance does that need towards these tools? And it's a heck lot more than we thought. And so in terms of resources needed on the technical side to not only build them, but to keep them stable and to maintain them, that took way more than we were expecting.
I totally get it. I actually have very similar problems because we integrate the APIs, not from the other SaaS software, but from the banks. And on paper, you integrate once the API and it's just like working seamlessly. In practice, it requires a lot of engineering and maintenance. That's a little surprising.
Yeah, no, I think a step further even, In our case, there is no open API for that, what we wanted to do. Automated user creation, deactivation, automated checkout for a new plan subscription and plan, and doing all the money clearing, consolidating it all in one tool. So what we had to do is we had to go out to all the different vendors and convince them to build an API for us that either matches our system or to open an API for us that they might already have. But here's the problem, and that's why I'm always saying we are 3 to 5 years too early. I'm pretty sure this type of API, maybe via OAuth, will be standard in 3 to 5 years. But right now, it's not. And so we're a little bit too early. I'm very sure that we will see players in a few years that will do exactly what we went on to do today.
I'm sure it's an obvious problem. I would dream to have such a solution. Just push the button and it works and it connects to 100 software that you have to use internally for each employee, and then you set up these other softwares for engineering, for operations, marketing, design, etc. That's the dream, right?
That's what we thought.
That's $1 billion idea.
Yeah, exactly.
So is it a lack of resources? Because 2019, that was the COVID time. Did you manage still to fundraise during the COVID pandemic? I remember it was hell for me.
Of course, we eventually didn't have as many resources as we wish we had when we got out to fundraise, because we started our fundraise directly in the midst of the pandemic, which was March 2020. So we raised a total of almost like $1.7 million, which was enough for the first prototype. But back then, first prototype in our case already means you've got to have a lot of integrations live. But it was not the resource. It's just that the market and the technology behind it is just not ready for it yet.
Yeah, you need to knock at the door of every single company so that they develop their APIs, give you access, document it, and make it work. It's super hard. Super hard.
I mean, there is an open standard out there and it's called Skim and SAML. But the problem with it is, it's first, you need DevOps engineers to set it up. It's not self-explanatory. And the second thing is, it only works for enterprise plans. And just to give you an example of what that means, if you are subscribed as a startup to Slack, you're either on the free tier, maybe on the business tier, or premium tier. But you're never on the Slack enterprise tier. And if the only existing standard out there that works and that is public, sometimes public, only works for enterprise plans, then no one in the market for now will be able to solve that chaos that we were trying to solve for mid-market companies. And that was our challenge. And then, you've got to knock on doors and convince them to make it public for us, or allow us to also use these integrations for lower tier plans. And that's just a lot of effort.
Yeah, I got it. So typically, Slack is used by, I think, 99% of startups nowadays. But they maybe don't want to bring their nice APIs interface for startups because that's part of their enterprise premium pricing, super expensive, that I think no startup is ever paying for that.
Exactly, and I respect that. That's exactly the thing. Like enterprises surprisingly have a big willingness to pay, and the incremental value that you get from a Slack enterprise plan is probably not as high as the price difference is high. But if you have this one feature that you really need, which is automated provisioning, well, you might go for enterprise pricing.
Got it. So you were kind of an artist a bit ahead of your time.
Yeah, we'll see. We tried it. I'm sure we will see it again in a few years. And for us, it was just not the right time, a little bit too early with this technology.
Mm-hmm. I do like the idea very much. I hope that maybe you will revive that in a couple of years. So now you decided to sell your startup on NFT. Can you explain for everybody what is NFT and how do you even sell a startup on NFT?
Yeah, so first, NFT stands for non-fungible token. I'm not a big crypto or blockchain guy, but what it basically is, it is a digital or a certificate that certifies that a digital asset is unique. These digital assets are like photos, videos, audio, anything that is somehow digital. And just in the recent months, I would say, NFT got really hyped, especially in the blockchain and crypto community. And normally what NFTs, I think what the core use case is right now is digital art. That digital artists, they sell their pictures and then sometimes they go crazy and sometimes they don't sell for at all or not for so much. And when we decided that we're too early for what we wanted to do with one tool, and that's technically very hard to do, we had the option to either go a traditional route, and that's especially in Europe, where you can't fail. It's not allowed to fail. And I'm very much against this, because what kind of culture are we, how are we educating, raising our people here in Europe that we're saying, hey, sorry, failing is not an option. You just go the biggest risk you can go by saying, hey, we're going all in or nothing by trying to create $1 billion company. But then when it fails, everyone wants to look back and says, hey, I've sold. And I don't think this is right, that you go out to your competitors and you say, hey, sorry, it didn't work. Would you be interested in acquiring some of the assets? And let's be honest, what happens in these cases, and that's normally always when you read on TechCrunch or so, something got sold, but the money amount for which it got sold is not disclosed. Mm-hmm. Well, it's most of the times because it was a fire sale. It was one of these fails where it just didn't work, and no one wants to admit that it didn't work. And so what we thought is, it's time to also acknowledge people that take the risk, that spend, all day, all night working constantly on trying to make something happen, that it's not bad that if these things don't happen and you don't sell. So we wanted to go public with it and say, okay, we will not do a fire sale. We will go a different route, which gets lots of media attention, which is now got, and sell the whole company, which consists of, hundreds or thousands, maybe millions of digital assets as one NFT. And so with that, we are doing something unique because we are the first startup ever sold as an NFT. Of course, we try to get the media attention to it. It's not so much about the money that we might make with that, but the media attention towards, guys, go out, start businesses, try hard, and if you at the end can say, even if you failed, you did the best you got, then it's not a bad thing that you failed. And that's why we did it.
Absolutely. It's part of the game of failing because you're taking a high risk, high reward path. For example, you know very well that it was very tough what you wanted to achieve. If you succeeded, maybe you would be the next billionaire. But
yeah, well, it's not so much about the money also. I think, and also that is probably wrong about the European startup culture, that often we look to America or other markets and say, hey, let's just build this for Germany, let's build this for France and so on. But the real definition of entrepreneurship is you're combining two things that have never been combined before to something unique, right? And so that differentiates you between being an entrepreneur, trying to create something completely new, and being a businessman, just doing something that other people are doing on a different market with the blueprint that you're having. So yeah, I encourage everyone, just do something crazy that no one has done before and go for it. And of course, the risks are high that you fail.
That's part of being a disruptor. You know, when you start to pitch your companies as a startup entrepreneur, there's always the question, if nobody has done that, how do you know there's a market for it? How do you know it will work? And if somebody has already done it, well, how are you going to compete with that? Why are you so tiny, so small, and all your competitors are doing it already? So it's always a tough place to sit when you're a tech entrepreneur.
Yeah, you know, I think in theory it's right when you say there are no stupid questions, but I think especially in the VC industry, there are two stupid questions. Oh, yeah. And two stupid questions are, why is no one else doing it? Yeah, because it's right that probably a lot of other people had this idea before and so on, and maybe you can read something out of this. But the second most stupid question is, why would, I don't know, Google not do this? Why would Amazon not do this?
I got it all the time.
If they wanted to, they could probably do everything they wanted, right? They have the resources.
You know, I got this question all the time. And, you know, it's annoying because, of course, when you look at Google, Facebook, Amazon, IBM, they have the resources just from their annual profit. They can fund all the startups in all Europe. Easily.
Most likely.
They could do anything if they wanted.
And it's seriously not a smart question. I always ask myself, like, where does that come from? You know, and now also thinking, what do I do next? I always thought about maybe doing a new type of venture capital fund that doesn't do the standard thing, because you really see a very strong, I wouldn't want to call it movement, but all VCs, most of the VCs calls that you're having, they're all the same. And then if you look into the average performance, you know, there's, for example, a report of the Kaufman Foundation, which says that the average VC fund performs worse than just investing in an ETF, sorry. And then the question is like, if everyone asks you the same questions in these VC meetings, are these the right questions?
So, you know, it's quite a new study that I think was released 1 or 2 years ago. We already know that 99% of asset managers who try to beat the benchmark, the S&P 500, etc., when you deduct their management fees, are underperforming ETF. That, we knew it. You're from the investment banking world. I was there. All traders knew it 100%. But what's new is actually most VCs, they're paid to make like better decisions, but a majority of them are underperforming the no decision strategy.
Yeah, and then the question is like, why is that? And of course, I don't want to put them all into one bucket, but one of the reasons I assume is a lot of VCs have never worked in startups or even founded startups. Yeah, and that is probably one part of the problem. If you don't know how it feels to do a startup and what you have to do with all of that, like how can you judge if someone is a good entrepreneur or not? And then another thing is, of course, just following traction. You know, when you go into VC meetings, a lot of times they always want to hear the standard MRR check marks. Either you have the MRR, then you get your term sheet, or you don't, and then you don't get it. But what about the business models? I'm sure there are some out there that are way harder to pull up in form of an MVP. And when you have pulled them up, to generate the MR after is way harder, but these have really hard times raising money.
Mm-hmm. Have you noticed any difference between European and American VCs?
Yes, absolutely. So I think I've now really good contacts to both worlds of VCs, but I would say that American VCs, they're always also the same as Europeans, always the same structure and so on, but at least they're straightforward. You know, they don't have problems making quick decisions if it's a yes or a no. Versus in Europe, you often see that they admire the American mindset, but they've never lived there, most of them. So they don't understand what it means, why these American VCs are like they are. So I always call it the double layer. You know, you apply the American rules and you want to play like an American, but then you put your European layer on top of it. And that's normally when you recognize they ask you after the first meeting for like a financial Excel spreadsheet, or I don't know, or they just don't understand what you're saying about a different market, or they ask you about, I don't know, the total addressable market or so. And let's be honest, like we as entrepreneurs and also people that work in VCs, you don't really need to know what the total addressable market is, because
nobody
you
knows.
see so many ideas, you know, it's either a big market or it's not, right?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Especially when you're creating something new that doesn't exist. there are 1 million ways where it can go just in the next 2, 3, 5 years. There's just no way to estimate the total market in 10 years. I think they ask that because they want to feel reassured that there's a market for it. And you can't see the market for it because it's just too early and the product isn't completely there.
Yeah. And there's probably a good reason for every of these questions. But then the question is, do these people know that ask you these questions what the original reason for the question was?
And how is it with American investors?
Quicker. I would say quicker. I think there's... Of course, they don't have the European layer, like asking you for financial spreadsheets and all that stuff, especially in like very, very early stage.
Yeah, they don't ask for that?
Normally not, you know. Oh. Apart from that, it's also way much friendlier. I would say the Europeans are very direct and you know what you're on. And with the Americans, often not. They're always very friendly. And then after a few weeks, you hear that something wasn't working there or so. But no, in general, they are very similar except for the double layer standard.
Where do you think this like European layer, as you call it, come from?
Culture. You know, the way we get raised, I think, you know, my home country is Germany, and the way I got raised is always thinking in risks, always adopting things, always strategizing things about before implementing them. And the American culture is very different. The American culture is, okay, just go for it, try it, and if it doesn't work, stand up again, try something else. You know, and then if you put both dimensions of what we Europeans understand as American plus how we got raised on top of it, then you create the double layer, especially if you've never lived in America.
Did you have the chance to go to America when we got admitted to Y Combinator, or was it fully remote?
No, in our case, it was the Chaos batch. So we actually moved to Silicon Valley, and we were I was there until May 2020, so until mid of Corona, but the Y Combinator batch was forced to go remote, I don't know, halfway through it or so, and then turned out into a big chaos. No one was knowing what was going on, also not the investors. That was a time, March 2020, when also Sequoia sent out this big investment memo to all the other VCs, which basically said, take care of your portfolio companies, don't invest for now, see what happens. So it was a big shit show now that I'm looking back. And it's crazy now.
There was a complete freeze on startup investments.
Yeah, everything froze. And now a year and a half later, you don't even remember. Like after that, everything went up back to normal again. Investments are as high as they've never been before. So it was crazy times. But to answer your questions, yes, we were in Silicon Valley, and I also lived in the States 3 years before that.
Mm-hmm. Did it change your mindset to be in the Silicon Valley?
I mean, I bet it does change your mindset if you don't know about it before, but I was living there 3 years before. And I think just in general, living in the States, I first lived in Florida and then in Texas before I went to Silicon Valley. Yes, it does change your mindset a lot.
What were the transformation that you have observed from your 3 years in America?
For me, I did my master's degree in America, 2 master's degrees. And the first thing when I got started, a master's of science in entrepreneurship, which is also nice to have if you want to know about the theory about entrepreneurship. But
is it actionable?
It's as actionable as if you ask someone that if you study management, is your management degree actionable? Probably not really, right? But it teaches you a lot of theories about management and, building companies. But no, the thing that I learned the most from this degree in terms of culture was that especially we Germans, we come in, we think it's structured, and then we go all in, we go in very tiny details and then write papers. The Americans, they don't write papers until like 2 days before the deadline, and then they quickly think, okay, how do I come up with the best possible result here? Like typical 80-20 rule. And then the result is, okay, they're maybe not at 100 points or so, but maybe at 90. Whereas, okay, maybe the German then ends up with a 95, but the Germans spend way more time and energy doing that stuff. And I think that's why the American culture, and especially the American startup culture, is so good, because 80 or 85% is okay if you spend a lot less time building it.
Yeah. So that's the whole philosophy behind shipping your early product as quickly as possible. Don't aim for perfection, because you will learn faster with the iteration and the feedback from your first customers?
I would say so. Absolutely, yes.
And how did you get the idea to sell your startup on NFT?
So yeah, as we just talked about, first option was, okay, do we do like to a competitor? Do we do a sale to a competitor? Or are we just fine with having failed, having had a big vision? And what's unique? So
do you label it as a failure? You don't know at how much it will sell.
That's true. Maybe it will sell more for more than we raised. So maybe failing makes us all very wealthy. Who knows? But seriously, we're doing it for the stake of it. Like we say, okay, on the one side, what can potentially create the biggest return for investors? And they are risk investors. I'm not going to see much of this money, even if it sells for anything. So the thing is, fire sale to a competitor, they don't get much money out of this. And we still have quite a lot of money in the bank. So it's not that we went bankrupt with this idea. So what we thought is,
actually, it's an important fact because most of the time, startups stop when they just run out of money. No more cash in the bank, can't pay the employees anymore, can't pay the servers. So that's not your case.
No, that's not our case. We have a lot more runway currently. We just know it's not technically possible. Like we tried now for so hard and we know it's not possible. So yeah, the NFT idea then just came. It's like, how can you combine, again, definition of entrepreneurship, do two different things that have never been combined before. In our case, it was NFT is hyped on the one side. On the other side, startup, the technology behind it is not working. So how do we combine it? Well, NFT is for selling digital stuff. What is digital? Our startup. So we're selling the startup as NFT. And because no one has ever done that before, and we are the first ones, we expected that it will go viral one way or the other, so that we might be able to achieve a return for our investors on this.
I guess if I put myself into your shoes, I also have raised money, I have investors, some of them are friends, and the last thing you want when in this situation is to lose money for your investors.
Yeah.
For example, like losing my money, it's not that I don't care, but look, it's my risk, it's my failure, etc. But I would feel much more losing money of other people.
Yeah, and I think that's especially true if you did a family and friends round. Yeah, I think for all institutional investors, big VCs out there, that's their business model. You know, 9 out of that startups fail, and that's what they have got to live with. You know,
and it's not even their money.
Yeah, and it's their LP's money, but of course they probably treat it as their own, as we do treat their money also as our own, right?
Yeah.
But
so just for all of our audience, the business model of venture capital is, I will oversimplify it, is basically to take the money from either pension fund manager, family offices, rich people, and then they will put that capital into effect by investing in high-risk early startup that can give them 10x, 100x, 1000x return. So basically, they're not playing with their money, they're playing with the money of other people. Like there's always a bigger fish in the economy. And they are remunerated based on like a fixed fee and a performance fee when they have one startup, which is doing extraordinarily well.
Exactly.
Unlike most angel investors, if you raise from your uncle, your friends, etc., it's actually their physical money that they have saved and earned through their hard work.
Exactly. And that's why, you know, if it comes to talking about like what do investors get back after you decide to liquidate like we did now, or to, you know, you even go completely bankrupt, then it probably doesn't feel great at all if your friends and family don't get anything, but they believed in you and they invested in you. And of course, part of the reason why we are also doing this NFT is because we were hoping that our investors, they will not get all their money back. Because yes, we do have money in the bank, but of course not what they initially invested. Yeah. So maybe it's a way to compensate them for this.
What's the starting price of one tool on the NFT?
So currently it is 1 Ethereum, which is equal to roughly $2,000. But we've got contacted by a different blockchain network that would like to transfer it over to them. So we'll see if it works, if we will do this or not. A starting price, again, 1 Ethereum, and then the symbolic reserve price. Reserve price is the price by which the auction will auto accept. Before that, it's our choice if we accept or not. Is equals roughly $1.65 million. And why does it equal $1.65 million? Because that's the money we raised.
So 1.65 means that you can return all the money to your investors.
No, even more, because we still have money in the bank. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Yeah. So you have a little profit.
If that works. But let's be honest, also talking about NFTs in general, I think I just looked it up. The top 10 NFTs out there, yes, there were some that got sold for $70 million and so on. And we sell, those startup as art now. It's officially not anything asset related or not the real startup. Of course, you will get access to all the data, all the repositories and stuff, code that we had with it. But it's art. And to make it into the top 10 list under NFT sales, it's probably going to be a tough one. But you've got to be in the top 10 through sell.
Okay, Gordian, I have to pause a second, because I remember the first time I saw your message that, hey, I'm selling my startup on NFT, I just froze. Like, what? Wait, let me read that again. Was he drunk, or what does that mean? So, like normal companies, when people want to acquire or when the founders want to sell, typically they would create something called a data room. In this data room, they gather all the financial projections, all the data, all the stats, how much money in the bank, what's in the company, like everything you can think of. And you will have like the CFO and the M&A from Goldman Sachs looking at it, and the venture capitalist. And they will go like crunch into details, every single line of your balance sheet, your assets, trying to see how much they can squeeze you in your fire sale. That's, I think, like the normal process.
Yes, that's correct.
But on the NFT, there's none of that.
No, in our case, it's a surprise box. You buy it, you go to the NFT website, and you see the assets that we include in that NFT. But you cannot really look into the assets and see what actually is in there. And so that's why we're selling it as art. You might be able to do something with it, but chances are also very high you are not able to do something with it. And as I told you before, we are not closing down because we went bankrupt or because, I don't know, we just didn't want to work on it anymore. We are closing this because we think the technology is not there yet. And
yeah, you need the infrastructure to make it work.
Exactly. The infrastructure.
Actually, I could buy your company for 1 Ethereum and then start it in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Well, you can always do that. And I'm very happy for whoever buys this, if that would happen.
And then I'll call you back as the CEO to run it. Is it really selling your entire company with all the intellectual properties, the patent, if any, like the leads, like everything? Is it just like if you were selling your company to any buyer?
Yeah, pretty much. Of course, bank accounts, money, liabilities, and so on, that's all not included, but we tried into the package, we tried to include everything that was one tool. So code.
Okay, so not the bank.
Not
so
the
I
bank,
can't arbitrate.
Repositories. The assets that we included in that listing, yeah.
Being an ex-banker, my first reflex was, how can I arbitrate that? How much money do they have in the bank and how much is it for sale?
Yeah, but that doesn't work because it's an asset deal and not a share deal. And so with that, you're not buying the actual entity or any related assets or liabilities. You're just buying trademark, domain, the name, and everything that was one tool, the platform.
Would you remain the director of the company?
No, if you own one tool, at least the assets, then I remain the director of the entity one tool GmbH that is then empty, and the other person can do whatever he or she wants with these assets.
So are you selling the parent company, which is what registered in Delaware?
No, also not. Like the entities, One Tool Inc. and One Tool GmbH, they will first stay and then we will probably liquidate them. Yeah, that's where the money is in. And the assets, they are being sold as the NFT.
Okay, so you're selling basically all the assets, but not the financial assets, the digital assets.
Exactly.
Okay. And can you disclose a bit more in case we have any interested buyer? What can we expect in your list of digital assets?
Yes, it's also included if you go to the NFT sale. We will probably link it below here. But so first of all is the trademark. We have the trademark in 28 EU countries and the United States. So you would have to transfer that over to your entity, but that's the first thing. Then it's the logo and the logo mark. Then as the technology behind it, we had an app store where you can buy and purchase software. So that front end, back end is all in there. However, as I said, maybe not functioning. Yeah. Then an API to connect to the different SaaS vendors. And then the provisioning suite that allows you to onboard and offboard team members. So team management, provisioning, SaaS management, also front end and back end. And these are the two main products that we had as one tool. So it means all the code, database, repositories, integrations, API, documentation, and so on, all comes with that. And then, of course, the website, SEO optimized with all the content that is in it, also comes with it. So what's included is basically everything that one tool was really working on. So first off, of course, the trademark in the EU, so all 27, 28 countries and the US. We would have to transfer that trademark to you, to your entity. Then, of course, the logo, then the app store, the front end and the back end. That was the store where you could purchase software. That is, of course, non-functioning anymore. You would have to make it function again. Then the API to connect to SaaS vendors and the full provisioning and SaaS management suite, front end and back end. Means everything that allowed you to automatically on and offboard users and manage your whole team and their software. It means all the code, all the database, repositories, the integration API, and all the documentation that came with it. And of course, just to be said, this is art. It's not functioning.
Okay. I guess you must have thousands, if not millions of lines of code.
I'm not a tech guy, so I cannot actually tell you how many lines of code we had or have, but quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Does that include also the list of your customer base?
No. For data security reasons, we don't share that customer base currently.
Okay. So for sale, all of your digital asset, anything that can be stored on a hard disk is for sale. Doesn't include the cash in the bank, doesn't include your customers, their emails, etc.
Exactly.
But for somebody who wants to restart the machine in 3 to 5 years, that's maybe a good deal.
Yeah, and I think even better deal for someone who wants to own the first startup that was ever sold as an NFT, because it will always stay the first startup ever sold as an NFT. And I think the art behind it might be worth more than the technology that you would have to ramp up here again.
Being the first. So how do you feel when you see pictures sold on NFT that are just standard PNG or JPEG pictures and they can be sold for 100K, 1 million, sometimes even more than 1 million, versus you selling your startup and countless hours of hard work?
How I feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we went in for, right? So countless hours we're describing as that's why the reserve price is 1.65 million, yeah? Because that's the money we spent on creating this piece of art.
I'm very curious to understand how regular investors and businessmen who like to shop for companies, strip them out, take their assets are reacting to that. Because typically they are very analytical, detailed, they want to see every single thing that they're buying. So how does that work with them when you say that you're selling it on an NFT?
It doesn't. Like, these guys are not the persona of people that we're targeting to buy this year.
Who are you targeting?
Well, first of all, you've got to ask your question, like, who do you know who's bought an NFT so far? Yeah, so that probably narrows it down quite a lot, because yes, NFTs are hyped, but the people that know how to buy an NFT, that's pretty niche still and pretty limited. And I would probably bet that most of the people that would normally buy and do a normal asset deal don't know how to buy an NFT. So the demographics of the people here are crypto lovers and people that are deep into blockchain and crypto and NFTs that see that as a piece of art and as something unique.
Got it. So you're not targeting the traditional businessman, startups, venture capitalists, not at all.
Oh God, no. Like, if you want an asset deal, there's a reason why we didn't do an asset deal, right? That's why it is a piece of art.
Would you take any questions or due diligence requests if somebody wants to buy it?
No, absolutely not. The game here is very clear. The reason why we did this is because we want to do things differently here.
Okay, so purely surprise, like Kinder Surprise for startup.
Yeah, if you want to call it that way.
And how is it going so far? I saw that you made the headline of Business Insider.
Yes, so far I think it went viral a little bit, over like 800 comments in the meanwhile on Twitter. Like Financial Times reached out, Business Insider already published an article, Wall Street Journal reached out and so on. So it's going a little bit viral. I'm not sure if it goes viral in the right areas yet, because again, the typical Business Insider reader might not be the reader who knows how to buy an NFT. But again, for us, it was more about educating people about the option of failure and that this is not a thing to hide yourself of. And if that did your job for it, awesome. If it gets some bits to sell for something, also awesome. But it's not that we expect something.
There's a strong message to the whole entrepreneur community behind your move to sell on NFT. Because I know many people, when they fail, they really feel depressed. If my company failed, am I a failure? How did you manage that psychologically?
I think in general, I'm probably a person with many ideas and a person that never gives up. And maybe that's also a sign of never giving up. Yeah. Just because you fail with this thing doesn't mean you fail with the next one or the one after or the one after. And I don't know the exact statistics, but statistically, you've got to found 5 companies or so to become successful with one. Now, this was my company number 4, so maybe the next one is mine.
What happened to the first 3?
Very interesting. So, first one, I was still in high school, last senior year, and I was having a movie company that created movies for bridal couples. But it created them by having a marketplace, matching movie directors and so on to the bridal couples. So that one, we just didn't continue when we went into studying. There were 2 of us, but it was fairly successful back then. Of course, nothing like super big scale. The second one was a music label. It was also very successful until Spotify entered the market. And I was just in general, I was still studying. I was not willing to make an event agency out of it because you couldn't make money with music sales anymore through Spotify. So also just shut that one down. The third one was Locana, based in Texas. We sold that one. And the fourth one was One Tool, and that one is being sold as an NFT. And the fifth one, we all don't know what it's going to be yet, but I am sure something is going to happen here.
Hopefully it will be the tremendous success.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Gordian, what would you like to say to all the entrepreneurs who are working on tough problems? They don't know yet if their solution is yet feasible because they take risks, they try to innovate, they enter new territory, and they don't know if it's going to work. So, one day you wake up, you kind of want to give up and try to do something a bit normal with your life because you look at all your friends, the normal life they have is they have a job, they have their paycheck, and they kind of know what they're doing. So what would you like to say to all these people?
Yeah, persist. I think what I would really like to say, because this is a very relevant question. I think as an entrepreneur, every morning you wake up and you ask yourself, is this going to work? You have so many ups and downs, sometimes even within one day. So I think in tendency, you see a lot of people and entrepreneurs. I have a lot of entrepreneurs friends that give up too early when it's not working well. But it's a fine line because what then means giving up too late, right? That's also the case. And I'm also asking that every day, like, did we now decide for the NFT thing at the right place? Was it too early or too late? It's a fine line, but at some point you've got a gut feeling about the right timing when it's worth to not continue with something. And then I think you found the right time, strategic intuition. But until then, just go on and make it happen.
Awesome. Gordian, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I wish you the best. All the best with your NFT sale. I hope that you will break new record. What's the highest NFT sale so far in the world?
Yes, I just looked it up because I didn't know before I joined this podcast. And it was a picture called The First 5,000 Days. And it sold for $69 million in March 2021 at Christie's.
$69 million for this unique picture on the NFT.
Yeah. It's a nice picture though.
I hope it is. All right, then I hope you'll get 10% of that. That would be a very good outcome for you.
We'll see.
If there are any NFT buyers in our audience, feel free to bid. No question, no due diligence. You'll get the surprise once you buy it.
Just the art of it.
Just the art of it.
Yep. Thank you so much for your time, Sam. Appreciate it.
All the best. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. I hope you found this episode enjoyable, inspiring, and educational. In this era of instant gratification, it is more important than ever to train our delayed gratification muscle. So keep learning, keep improving by 1% every day. You may not see the results right now, but this is a secret of all the successful people I've met. Please help me spread financial education by sharing this podcast with your friends and community. I would love it if you could also leave us a review. It really helps the show. Now, I would like you to forget about all the advertising that is being pushed to us on a daily basis and think about your personal financial goals. What do you really want to achieve with your money? If you have financial objectives, then check out the Nova Money app. Nova is an AI that will show you how to set financial goals and how to achieve them. A plan is only useful if you can follow it. That's why Nova will send you daily motivational messages to give you the strength to ignore the daily temptations of spending money and stay focused on your goals. Like other budgeting apps, Nova connects all your bank accounts in one place to give you the full picture. The difference is that the Nova AI will do all the budgeting and tracking for you. The second difference is that unlike many free personal finance apps, we don't sell users' data. All your data is encrypted and will remain completely private. Make sure that you're investing in your financial education. Make sure that you're building your financial freedom. And I'll speak to you in the next episode.